Welcome on into the Blue Ski Mask Show. We're here on the campus of Oakland University, 88.3 FM WXOU. Kurt, the Kansas City Chiefs are the NFL's newest dynasty.
They are, unfortunately. But I will say, we have to preface this before we get into the show. Today's show is rated U, and it may cause singing, dancing, sweating, gyrating, possible relationship issues. Welcome to the Blue Ski Mask Show.
I'm excited for this. Let's get into it. The Chiefs obviously won their third Super Bowl in 5 years. They beat the 49ers 25-22 was the score in overtime. It was pretty wild. It was kind of a game where it was pretty boring at first, to be honest. Like, there wasn't a whole lot going on, and no one was really playing well.
No.
It was kind of just like, a fumble here, fumble there, punt here, punt there. It was like, is anyone going to do anything? This is the Super Bowl.
Right.
Let's see some offense. We saw a whole lot of it last year when the Chiefs beat the Eagles 38-35, but this one started out weird.
It did, and honestly, the entire game, even though it went to overtime, it was so underwhelming and boring to me. And I don't know why. I was dreading an overtime period in this game because I just wanted to go home and do other things besides watch the Super Bowl for the first time ever. But yeah, Chiefs pull it out in OT. And what's really weird is a lot of the 49ers players didn't even understand the overtime rules I saw.
I noticed that.
Which, I don't know, maybe... Obviously, you have to... That's poor coaching.
Yes.
You have to blame that on the coach, but how do you not go over overtime rules? New overtime rules?
Yeah. And on the other side of the field, you had Chiefs players and Andy Reid saying, we go over that every week. Mm-hmm. This is something we practice and we talk about every week in the playoffs. And, did knowing the playoff rules really have that much of an effect on the game?
Probably not.
No, because, the Niners got a field goal, the Chiefs got a touchdown. Knowing the rules didn't really have any impact on what happened on the field, in my opinion. But I think psychologically, it's you got to be more confident if you know what you're doing out there compared to the 49ers, who they said they were reading it on the Jumbotron. They were finding out about the new playoff rules for the first time right there as overtime was starting in the Super Bowl. And, the Chiefs were more prepared. Andy Reid was clearly the better coach over Kyle Shanahan, who, I guess is kind of made a name for himself in blowing leads in Super Bowls. This was the third one. But let's talk a little bit about the quarterbacks, because Brock Purdy was pretty much Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
As everyone kind of expected. He didn't make any mistakes, but he didn't make any plays. He didn't make any game-winning plays. He missed, I think it was Brandon Ayuk or maybe it was Deebo Samuel in the end zone for a touchdown. He was good, but he didn't win them the game. But I guess you could also say he didn't lose them the game.
Right. I mean, every time Purdy threw the ball, it was a crosser, it was a slant, it was a 6-yard pass, or if we got lucky, maybe a 10-yard pass. And it just got really boring really quickly to watch that all game long. And I think, so Purdy, he had 23 completions all game. Only 2 of them were for 20-plus yards.
Wow.
Which, you can say what you want, but that's just such a crazy stat to me. And knowing how Purdy is, probably both of those catches were caught and then ran for those 20 yards. So
yeah, I can't remember them off the top of my head, but I wouldn't be surprised if you were right. 23 of 38 for 255 and a touchdown in your first Super Bowl at, I think he's 23 years old. I mean, that's pretty good. But like I said, he didn't make any plays that won the 49ers the game, and they ultimately ended up losing. On the other side of the field, you had Patrick Mahomes, who at this point is he's got to be undoubtedly a top 3 quarterback of all time. I mean, this dude is just dominating the NFL. He was 34 of 46 for 333 yards and 2 touchdowns. He did have an interception in the beginning of the second half, but he had 9 carries and 66 yards too. So Kurt, almost 400 yards of total offense there for Mahomes. He won him the game. I mentioned Purdy didn't make any game-winning plays. Patrick Mahomes, 4th and 1, scrambled for the first down. Finds Travis Kelce late in the fourth quarter and overtime. You know, he had that crossing route to the one wide receiver, Rashee Rice or something maybe, but he made plays to help them win the game, and Brock Purdy just didn't.
Right. And going back to the top 3 conversation, I think Mahomes at this point, and I'm a Mahomes hater, I think he'll probably surpass Tom Brady as maybe, I know you're a Michigan guy, but we have to look at like this rate. Pat Mahomes is like, what, 28?
Yeah.
I mean, he's got probably, as long as he doesn't get like any crazy injuries, probably has at least 10 more years of football left.
I'd agree.
So he won't have Travis Kelce by his side those entire 10 years, but I can imagine that as long as you have Patrick Mahomes on your team, you're going to be a threat no matter what. And this year was the year that, you know, I think proves that, because I thought the Chiefs were going to get bounced to round 1 or round 2.
Oh, yeah.
And
everyone did.
I kind of ate my own words. Here we are. We're talking about them winning the Super Bowl again.
Yeah.
So, rough.
Tell you what, I could spend the whole hour of this show talking about why, in my opinion, I don't think Mahomes will ever get close to Tom Brady's 7 Super Bowl rings. But that's not the purpose of the show. I'll just say, if he plays 10 more years, he plays to 38. He's still got to win 4. And I feel like even getting to 4 Super Bowls in the next 10 years would be a stretch. Like you mentioned, you're probably not going to have Kelce. He's getting old. He's pushing 35, isn't he?
I think he's like 32 or 33 off the top of my head.
Andy Reid is double that at least. He's got to be close to 70. He's not going to be around. I just feel like the dynasty isn't going to last that long to the point where they're going to be able to win 4 of the next 10 or 12 if he plays until 40. That's my opinion. If he does get there, if he does get to 7, I will consider him the greatest of all time. But until then, it's still Tom Brady for me. I did think it was interesting, and you have written here, Mahomes had 333 yards, which I guess correlates with
unlucky number.
Yeah, his dad's 3 DUIs, one of which was it happened like the week of the Super Bowl, the week leading up to the Super Bowl. So I thought that was funny. But another ironic thing was that, you know, we were talking about Brock Purdy earlier and how he didn't really make any game-winning plays. The first passing touchdown, not only for the 49ers, but in the game in general, was from Jauan Jennings, the wide receiver. And he found Christian McCaffrey on a trick play. So I thought that was ironic that, you know, the first passing touchdown for the 49ers, not even from Brock Purdy.
Not even from Brock Purdy. And I mean, it was a pretty fun trick play, but what sucks is that was the most entertaining play like all game.
Yeah.
And like going into halftime, I remember seeing like 3 different angles of that trick play because there was like nothing else entertaining happening in the game. But I think there's an argument, maybe a slight argument. Could Jauan Jennings be a better QB than Brock Purdy?
I don't know.
Could he do it?
He was listed as a quarterback coming out of high school.
Really?
I saw Rivals posted that on Twitter that they had Jauan Jennings listed as a quarterback coming out of high school. Obviously, he switched over to wide receiver, but I don't know. That's an interesting question. And, you know, last week we talked a little bit about the Pro Bowl games, and since you have it written here, I'm sure you saw it, the Dan Orlovsky, I don't even know what you want to call it, accuracy
the
drill, whatever it is.
Yeah.
he showed out.
He did, in a suit, not in a suit, but in a dress shirt and dress pants. Dan Orlovsky is more accurate than some notable QBs around the league. I forgot exactly who he beat. It might have been like Tua.
I think it was Tua.
And
yeah.
Geno Smith. But I don't know. Maybe the 49ers should call up Dan Orlovsky. Because I know Dan Orlovsky could probably throw those same slant routes and same crosser routes.
Yeah.
But we have to talk about Travis Kelce yelling at Andy Reid.
That was wild.
And just in the first half, in the middle of the game. I think this happened after Isaiah Pacheco fumbled really deep into 49ers territory. And, Travis Kelce's on the sideline taking a breather. But he didn't want to take a breather, I guess. So he yells at his coach, gets in his face and shoves him. What did you think about that, Brock?
I thought it was bizarre. I listen, I give him credit for wanting to win. You can obviously tell he's a competitive guy. And honestly, in my opinion, when you see something like that happen between a player and a coach, I think it actually goes to show the amount of respect that there is between the two of them, that Kelce can go up to him and act like that. You don't see that a lot, but Kelce and Reid have been together for so long. I feel like there's this respect where Reid knows Kelce wants to be on the field. Kelce knows Reid wants what's best for the team, obviously, and wants to win. I do think it was interesting because I think part of the reason why Kelce was so mad was because they took him out, and then the guy who they brought in to replace him missed a key block on that play that forced Pacheco to fumble. And I think that's kind of why Kelce was so mad. And, at first when they first showed it, I thought, what is he doing? He's acting like a moron. And then all of a sudden, I kind of thought, I was like, there's this certain level of respect. I don't know how else to describe it, but there's a level of respect between the two that I think allows for that kind of behavior. And obviously it ended well for them and they ended up celebrating on the podium. But yeah, it was weird. And it was obviously a frustrating first half for Kelce. He had one catch for 1 yard.
Yeah.
And so, I can't blame him too much for acting like that. But in the second half, he really stepped up. 8 catches for 92 yards in the second half and in overtime. So, I don't condone going up and like bull rushing your head coach, but it worked out for him. So
it did.
Let's talk a little bit about the Lions here really quickly.
We have to, because we are a Lions show.
Yes.
So
yes. And there were some people, especially in the first half, when the game wasn't going well, Pacheco fumbled, Christian McCaffrey fumbled. Neither team could really get on the board. There were some people wondering, would the Lions win this game? And I don't know, because Mahomes obviously carried the Chiefs late in the game, and he simply wasn't going to let them lose. But I think there's a case to be made that the Lions, at the very least, would have made it competitive and brought that sense of offensive firepower. They could have even won.
I agree. The entire time I was watching the game, I was kind of thinking, I wonder what this game would look like if the Lions were playing the Chiefs, because I don't know. Like, you have to think, like, a lot of the points the 49ers scored were from the leg of Jake Moody. And obviously, the Lions don't have a guy who can kick a 55-yard field goal on our team. So it would be like a totally different Super Bowl. And we didn't even talk about Jake Moody, who I think, he broke their record for the longest field goal in the Super Bowl, which was kind of crazy, in my opinion. Like, I didn't realize, because it's not like a crazy record. I think he just kicked like a 53 or 54-yarder.
Yeah.
And I think Harrison Butker
broke it a few hours later.
Broke it in the same game, which is pretty funny to me, at least.
Yeah. And, talking about Moody, there's been a lot of talk about that extra point that, they brought Jay Feely, a former kicker, on the broadcast after the commercial break and before the next kickoff, I think, and he said it was on Moody. The ball came off his ankle weird and went low, which allowed the Chiefs to block it, and obviously didn't go through the uprights. And I've seen a lot of people talk about, well, the game went into overtime, and if Moody makes that extra point, the 49ers are up 1. The game doesn't go into overtime, the 49ers win. But I think what a lot of people are forgetting is that if Moody makes that field goal, the Niners are up 4 points instead of 3. On the next possession, I think, the Chiefs went down, kicked a field goal. You can't assume that the Chiefs are going to kick a field goal down 4
right
instead of down 3, because late in the game like that, I think it was late in the fourth quarter, 3 points isn't going to do you any good because you're still down 1. So the Chiefs are going to go try for a touchdown. It's hard to predict what would have happened there, but I've heard a lot of people talk about how the game was kind of lost by Jake Moody, but I don't think that's the case. I mean, he kind of kept him in it.
Right.
He hit 2 50-plus yard field goals.
Yeah, I agree with you, because if he makes that field goal, like you said, it changes the whole dynamic of the game. So in another dimension, Jake Moody makes that field goal. Do the 49ers win? We don't know, because we went to overtime instead. But prior to the Super Bowl, of course, there's like a little media day. And as like journalism people, I think it's funny to talk about this, because there's like a lot of people who go to these Super Bowl media days who clearly like are invested in the sports and don't have like a big knowledge about sports, which is of course fine. But we have a couple instances that I thought were pretty funny that we can talk about. So first, a reporter asked Patrick Mahomes if his dad's recent DUI arrest would affect his play in the Super Bowl. And as much as it's a valid question, I think, to ask, but what would you expect Patrick Mahomes to...
He's not going to say yes.
to say to that? Like, I don't know.
I'm sure he said something like, no, I'm focused on winning the game.
Yeah.
He's not going to say yes, and he's not going to say, yeah, I'm just going to go out there and try my best for my dad. Like, he's not going to answer that question, I feel like.
No, I don't think he did, but it's like... Can you imagine if if the Chiefs lose and Patrick Mahomes is like, yeah, if my dad didn't get that DUI, probably could have won. I don't know, just a goofy question to ask, I guess. There was also a fake Andy Reid walking around, and actual reporters interviewed him. I don't know if they did it because it was satirical and they knew it, or if not, maybe they actually thought they were interviewing him.
That's wild.
And he was giving some sarcastic responses about cheeseburgers and stuff. So, I don't know, maybe in some article somewhere, there's just a crazy cheeseburger quote from Andy Reid.
This next one, I'll let you introduce it. This is out of pocket. I saw this online. I was like, what are they talking about?
Yeah, this one I don't even understand. Like, I saw the video of it, and I don't know. So, Brock Purdy was asked how he feels about being compared to Lee Harvey Oswald, who, as you know, is connected to JFK. I don't think we're allowed to get into the specifics on the radio, but I'm sure you guys know. What is that comparison?
I don't know. I don't even know why anyone would bother to ask that. What is that going to do for you in terms of creating content ahead of the Super Bowl? No one cares about that.
No.
Like, why? I don't even understand that question.
Right.
That makes no sense.
I try to, like, maybe connect, like, a piece in my brain of, like, what is Brock Purdy and how does he compare to this person? And I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
That's so weird.
And the last one, Christian McCaffrey was asked what similarities he sees between Brock Purdy and Cam Newton. McCaffrey's response was they look alike. And, obviously he just did that for jokes, but that's just so funny to me. Again, I think that's a valid question you can probably ask, but I don't see what that question does for you as a journalist.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are some weird ones, man, especially that question to Purdy. That's bizarre. I can't believe that's even real. All right. We've got some mock draft fun here for you all. We're going to do the first 11 picks. We're going to go one more than the usual 10 that you might see.
So we might not get to the full 11. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna keep this a continuous mock draft. So next week we're gonna continue, and we're just gonna keep going.
Oh, I like it.
I think
all right,
because there's really nothing else we can talk about.
Yeah. Okay.
At this point in the season,
I like it. I like it a lot. All right. So we're gonna start here at number 1 overall. I will put a disclaimer. This is, at least for me, this is what I think is going to happen. This is not what I would do if I was the Bears GM, but this is what I think is going to happen in the NFL draft, and we're not going to project trades or anything like that because that's impossible to keep track of. So we're going to kick it off here at number 1. For me, I think it's pretty obvious. Caleb Williams. Going number 1 overall. He won the Heisman 2 years ago. That's going to put the Bears in an interesting spot.
It does, and like you said, if I'm the Bears, I probably trade out of number 1. And I keep Justin Fields on my team. But as it stands right now, they have not traded the first overall pick. So, yeah, it's Caleb Williams. It's a lock. This has been the number 1 lock the entire year, at least in my opinion. So,
yeah.
And do I think he's going to be the best QB from this draft class? Maybe not.
Nope.
But he's definitely going to be better than the guy I have going number 2, which is Drake May to the Washington Commanders.
Bust.
Really?
He has bust written all over him.
Is that because North Carolina or?
I don't think he's that good. He put up monster stats 2 years ago, and in my opinion, I think he should have won the Heisman over Caleb Williams. But they were 8-5. North Carolina was this past year in the ACC, and I know I could talk about this all day, and we're probably not gonna have enough time to go through the ins and outs of every player. But his stats were unbelievable 2 years ago, and then even this past year they were really good, but they didn't win ball games. And I think winning is like the first thing you need to look at when you're evaluating these quarterbacks. And I don't know. In my opinion, he could be like maybe not as big a bust as Mitch Trubisky, who was also taken at 2. I think he could be close though.
Right. And I think I could be wrong. The last UNC QB taken was Sam Howell, I believe. Correct?
Sounds right.
So, and I mean, Sam Howell's been decent. Is he a starter in the NFL? Probably not, even though he did start all year. And I mean, he was solid all year, but we'll see. I'm not a big believer in Drake May, but I still think he goes to the Commanders.
I agree. Looking at 3, we got another Heisman winner. This year's Heisman Trophy winner, and Jayden Daniels. Both of us have Jayden Daniels going number 3 to the Patriots. I think this is a match made in heaven, in my opinion. I think he's a guy that he's going to step in. He's going to take over the starting job. Mac Jones is going to be his backup, I think. But this dude's a stud. And, it kind of contradicts my last statement of not winning games because LSU was 9-3 in the regular season, I think. And I can't remember if they won their bowl game. But I think this guy's the real deal. And he's going to step in there and really turn the Patriots around.
Yeah, I agree. I think he had one game where he had over 700 yards in a game, and that doesn't happen on accident. You get a new coach, you get a new QB, probably the most exciting and explosive QB in the draft, at least in my opinion. Yeah, Jayden Daniels at 3 I think is a lock for sure. Unless maybe the Commanders, take a little reach on Jayden Daniels. But at number 4 we have the Cardinals. And we have probably the most hyped wide receiver prospect we've seen in years. Maserati Marv going his name is not Maserati. I'll say his full name. Marvison. Oh my gosh. I'll just let you do it, Brock.
Marvin Harrison Jr., the son of former NFL great Marvin Harrison. This dude's incredible. Played for Ohio State. He's like, if you wanted to design the perfect wide receiver in a lab, it'd be Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah.
He's unreal. And, is he going to step in there and immediately turn around a Cardinals franchise? Probably not. I feel like they're still trying to figure out if Kyler Murray's the guy for that job in some respects, but Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be a guy that if you don't have a lockdown corner on your team, he's going to torch you. So I like that pick there for the Cardinals at 4. Number 5, this is another one for me where, you see, I've already said like 3 times, match made in heaven or perfect fit. I think this is another one. I think it's Brock Bowers going to the LA Chargers. We both have it. Jim Harbaugh gets hired. And listen, I've watched a lot of Jim Harbaugh coach football teams. He loves his tight ends. He likes it when they can block, when they can catch. That's Brock Bowers. I think he's a stud, 2-time national champion with the Georgia Bulldogs. He beat Jim Harbaugh's team 2 years ago in the college football playoff. I think that's a great fit with the Chargers.
I agree. And Brock Bowers is another guy like Marv where we probably won't see a player like him again. I think Kyle Pitts was taken 4th overall back in 2021. So we're going to see another tight end go pretty high up the boards. And I mean, after we saw what Sam Laporta did for the Lions, can you really blame teams for, I guess, reaching, you could say, on these talented tight ends? I don't think so, because we know that tight end, if you draft a great tight end, that can change a lot of things in your favor.
Yeah.
Now at 6, this is where me and Brock split off outside the top 5. At 6, I have the New York Giants taking Malik Nabers out of LSU. And this is a guy that I think if Marv did not exist, he would be getting probably the same amount of attention as Marv. He's really talented, and I think the Giants go wide receiver here. If you ask me to name a Giants wide receiver off the top of my head, I would not be able to tell you. So that is my reasoning for them taking Malik Nabers.
Yeah, if you look at his stats compared to Marvin Harrison Jr.'s, they're almost identical.
Yeah.
And like you said, he'd be getting a lot more of attention if it wasn't for Marvin Harrison Jr. I agree with you in the sense that the Giants go wide receiver. I just have them taking Rome Odunze out of Washington, another stud wideout who, I mean, he's right up there with Harrison. And you look at them, they're all kind of identical, right? But I'm no draft expert. Could be Odunze, it could be not. It could be Nabers, could be not. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what the Giants do there at 6. But I think you're right. They're going to go wide receiver because I can't name a wideout on their team either. Let's go to 7. We have the same position here too, just 2 different players. I've got offensive tackle Joe Alt out of Notre Dame going to the Titans at 7 to protect the quarterback, which...
Will Levis, probably?
Is it Will Levis?
I think it would be. Will Levis I think he had probably one of the most impressive rookie debuts of all time. And of course, beginner's luck. I don't remember how he closed out the season, but considering they're not going to get a shot at a top 3 QB, I think for now, he's going to just be a placeholder QB, or possibly he'll blossom into something else. And that's also why I have them taking an offensive lineman, not named Joe Alt, but named Olu Fashanu out of Penn State. You build teams in the trenches, and the Titans need to build a better team. And I think either Joe Alt or Olu, whoever's on the board, you should have a choice there at number 7, more than likely. So as long as they go offensive tackle, I think it's a good pick.
I agree. They need protection along the offensive line badly. And I think they're obviously going tackle or some offensive lineman there at 7. Moving on to 8, we'll go a little bit quicker here. I've got the Atlanta Falcons taking Terrion Arnold out of Alabama. Corner. I think, they some would say they reached on Bijan Robinson last year in the draft. I can't imagine they go with another weapon on offense back-to-back years. So I'll have them taking Terrion Arnold, but I think the Falcons' defense is actually not that bad. So that's one that I'm really interested to look at. The Falcons pick at 8. You have them going
Joe Alt.
Yeah, O-line as well. So that'll be interesting. They got Desmond Ridder at quarterback.
Yeah, this is the issue. I don't think the Falcons will be picking 8 this year.
You think they trade out?
I think, yeah. That's the thing. They're either going to trade up or they're going to trade for Justin Fields. One of the two, in my opinion. And I think if you get your QB for the future, you go offensive line because you have all these weapons. You have Kyle Pitts, you have Drake London, Bijan Robinson.
Yep. You
get your QB for the future, get your offensive tackle for the future, and solidify that offense. And that's what I think they'll do.
Moving on to 9 here. You draft Caleb Williams. You need one of two things. You need protection for him or you need weapons for him. And we've got him doing each of those things. I've got him taking Olu Fashanu from Penn State, who you had earlier going to the Titans. And
I have him taking Rome Odunze. I think that even whoever it is, Caleb Williams, Justin Fields, just having DJ Moore and Cole Kmet doesn't really cut it. You need another weapon, and Rome Odunze is probably the best weapon left on the board at number 9.
Yep.
At least with how my mock draft is progressing. So, and then we're gonna wrap up at 10. We're gonna leave you with a teaser at 11 because Brock did some unspeakable things at 11. So, at number 10 we have the Jets, and I have them taking J.C. Latham out of Alabama. To actually forget, did he go to Alabama?
Yeah.
Yes, he did. Okay.
Yep.
You have Aaron Rodgers coming back. Aaron Rodgers played 4 snaps last year. Why did he only play 4 snaps? Because the defense got to him on that 4th snap. So beef up that O-line. Make sure you get maybe a year or 2 out of Rodgers, I guess. And you still have Breece Hall, who's one of the best running backs in the league, back there as well. So I think beefing up the O-line it's not a pretty pick, but it's the best pick for the Jets, in my opinion.
I like that. And I did not have J.C. Latham initially written, but you talked me into it. I originally had Jared Verse, but the Jets' defense is really good. So I feel like they don't need a pass rusher. I'm going to have him taking Latham as well. If they can get some protection for Rodgers and that Jets offense can get going, they're going to compete in the AFC. They may not be on the level of the Chiefs or the Ravens or some of the other good teams, but they could win the AFC East. That's for sure. So protection for Rodgers. I don't think what I did at 11 is that unspeakable. I won't say I think this player is going to be drafted higher than 11 because I think some trades are going to be involved, but we'll save that for next time. Kurt, if I remember last week, you bet very strongly on the Pistons going 1-2 in their 3 games this past week. And they didn't. They actually outperformed your expectations. They went 2-1.
They did, surprisingly. And arguably, in a world where NBA refereeing is perfect, they go 3-0. We beat the Kings. We beat the Trailblazers, which was a game I was very confident about. And we lost to the Clippers by 6 points. But the Clippers shot 19 more free throws than the Pistons. So, definitely a little suspicious there. But we have to talk about Jaden Ivey. Jaden Ivey has been playing out of his mind. This past week, Ivey not only scored a career-high 37 points against the Kings, but he also tallied a career high in 3-pointers made against the Trailblazers with 7. And in that game against the Trailblazers, he shot 1 for 14 from inside the 3-point line, but he shot 7 for 7 from 3.
Wow.
So weird things from Jaden Ivey, but good things from Jaden Ivey.
Yeah, he's been playing really well lately, and yeah, I think he and Cade Cunningham are kind of finally starting to figure out how to play together.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tricky situation because you have two ball dominant guards that thrive when the ball's in their hands, but it seems like they're kind of starting to figure it out. In that game against the Trailblazers, I watched the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter and overtime. That was fun to watch.
Yeah.
And the weird thing is Monty Williams didn't make any substitutions. I think it was from like the 7-minute mark in the fourth quarter for the rest of the game. Like 12 straight minutes of basketball with no substitutions. You had Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Ausar Thompson, Jalen Duren, and I don't know why I'm blanking on the other player that was on the court.
I didn't watch the game, so I can't speak. I think this might have been the night before the trade deadline. So,
I remember now. It was the night of the trade deadline. So this was the day that the Pistons made all those trades, and they had like 8 or 9 guys available.
So it might have been.
They brought up. It was some big name guy. It was Cade, Ivey, Thompson, Duren.
Was it Amude?
No. I can't remember right now off the top of my head, but those 5 guys out there playing ball was fun to watch. They were playing hard. Duren was incredible. He was all over the offensive glass, and the Pistons won. It was really incredible. This, like I mentioned, this was the game that was on the day of the trade deadline, and they didn't have a whole lot of weapons. They had to call up Amude from the G League, I think, and maybe one other guy too, but really impressive.
100%. And speaking of the trade deadline, Simone Fontecchio, a player that the Pistons traded for at the deadline, he's from the Jazz, had a great debut against the Clippers. He shot 8 for 19 and had 20 points, 9 rebounds, and an assist. And Fontecchio might just be the next Bojan in a way. Obviously, he's not going to score 20 points every night like Bojan essentially did, but when I look at Fontecchio, I see a slightly better Bojan in him. And I think Fontecchio is like 28, so he's not one of the youngest guys on the team, but to come in on day 1 and score 20 points is impressive.
Absolutely, yeah. And he came from the Jazz, didn't he?
He did.
So, like you said, coming in, scoring 20 points, really impressive for a guy who I don't think anyone really expected much of him the rest of this season. But really, really surprisingly impressed with what the Pistons have done lately. Why don't you, Kurt, break down what they did at the trade deadline? Because almost none of these trades had happened when we did the show last week, and there's a lot to keep up with.
All right, so we're gonna speed through this as fast as we can. So the Pistons, to clarify, were the most active team at the deadline this year. They made 4 trades on the day, which is the most out of all the teams around the league. So first, we talked about Simone Fontecchio. Detroit received him, and we gave Utah Kevin Knox. This is the second year in a row where we signed Kevin Knox and trade him at the trade deadline. So condolences to Kevin Fortnite Knox. We also oh my gosh. So we also traded the Jazz a 2nd-round pick from this upcoming draft, which originated from Washington. So that's going to be a pretty high 2nd-round pick, and the draft rights to Gabriel Procida, who is a 2nd-round we picked. I don't even know how long ago. If you're trading the draft rights to a player, that tells you all you really need to know about how they're playing in Europe. So the next trade the Pistons made was we received Shake Milton, Troy Brown Jr., and a 2030 2nd-round pick from the Timberwolves. And we gave up Monte Morris, which is a guy I thought we were going to get rid of. And it happened. So solid deal there, considering we only traded a 2nd-round pick for Monte Morris. So we get a 2nd-round pick back, and we get 2 players back. We also received Daniel House Jr., who I forgot was even still an NBA player, and a 2024 second round pick from the 76ers for nothing, which is essentially $110K in cash. And Daniel House Jr. was waived the same day we got him in trade. So
you get a free second round pick.
Free second round pick. We'll take those all day long. And the biggest trade of probably the trade deadline and the biggest trade the Pistons made was the Pistons received Quentin Grimes, Evan Fournier, I can never say his last name, Malachi Flynn, Ryan Arcidiacono, and 2 future second-round picks. And the New York Knicks received Bojan Bogdanovic and Alec Burks. So, pretty active trade deadline. A lot more active than I thought the Pistons would be. But solid deals all around. I'm not really mad with any of these deals here.
Yeah, you were pretty spot on with, if any of the listeners tuned into last week's show, Kurt outlined the players he thought would get traded. And Kurt, you were pretty spot on. You said Bogdanovic would get traded. Burks got traded like you predicted. Monte Morris, and I think that was the main 3.
Yeah, those were definitely the main 3 I thought would go.
And they all went. And I will say, you said you weren't mad about any of the trades. I can't say I'm mad either. I don't get mad about much the Pistons do. I'm not a huge fan of theirs anyway, but I was a little confused at how the Pistons didn't get a first-round pick in that trade with the Knicks for Bogdanovic and Burks. You give up 2 guys that are going to be consistent players in the rotation, and all you get are some guys that you end up waiving and a couple second-round picks.
The real prize is Quentin Grimes.
Is he a player?
He is a player.
Okay.
He hasn't had the best season this year, but this is a guy who actually played college ball with Marcus Sasser, and he's a really great 3-and-D wing. He hasn't played yet for the Pistons, so I'm assuming he's just learning the playbook and everything and getting suited in Detroit, but I really don't think a first-round pick was even on the table for Bojan. So you have to take what you can get, and we got Quentin Grimes.
So he's an upgrade from Killian Hayes, is what you're telling me.
100%.
Okay.
But with how the lineup probably shakes out, Quentin Grimes is probably going to play the 2 or the 3 as a backup. Marcus Sasser, I assume, will take over the lead backup guard role, which is great.
Sasser is the guy who was on the court.
Oh, it was Sasser.
There in that late stretch with Cunningham, Ivy, and Duren, and Thompson. That was fun to watch. The Pistons did waive Killian Hayes. Ryan, I think it's pronounced Arcidiacono.
Okay, so I butchered his last name. Cool.
I could be wrong, but I think that's what it is. Well, Danilo Gallinari and Joe Harris all gone because there was one point on trade deadline day when the Pistons had 19 players
19
on their roster, so they had to kind of cut down. One note on Killian Hayes, I saw there was some girl, she went viral at the game a week ago, 2 weeks ago, where she was holding up a sign. She came all the way from Germany to watch Killian Hayes play basketball, which talk about a waste of money. You get a plane, you find somewhere to stay, you got to pay for travel, lodging, food, all that kind of stuff, just to watch Killian Hayes play basketball. Luckily, this was before he got waived. Imagine making all those plans to come see Killian Hayes play, and then he gets waived.
Well, at least the next time she'll see Killian Hayes, she'll just have to go to France instead of the United States. So, luckily, us waiving Killian Hayes probably saved her a lot of money in the future. You probably don't even need to take a plane to France, but I haven't been to Europe, so I can't really speak on that. Anyways, so what does this trade deadline mean for the Pistons? Me and you talked about this a little bit on the day of the deadline, but Troy Weaver has put all of his chips into the free agency market. The Pistons will have about $80 million to spend, which equates to around 2 max contracts. So help is on the way. It just won't come until July. And this is the last. So Troy Weaver has like refused to spend money in free agency, like the entire time he's been the general manager. But this is the last year he can afford to spend money in free agency because Cade Cunningham and all the rookies in a part of his class, so Scotty Barnes, Evan Mobley, Jalen Suggs, guys like that, they're due for extensions. So they're eligible to be extended this upcoming summer. I'm assuming we'll extend Cade Cunningham to a max contract. If not, then we wait till next summer to do it. But this is the year you sign players. There's no more waiting around. You have to do it now.
So if you sign Cunningham to a max deal or whatever kind of a deal he wants, is that going to cut into the $80 million that you have to spend?
It won't, because if Troy Weaver is a smart GM, which I assume he is, he's going to spend that $80 million. So the Pistons will be left with no cap space. But in the NBA, you're allowed to go underneath the cap. So they'll spend all their free agency money. They'll meet with Cade Cunningham, give him that max contract extension. So now you have Cade Cunningham for the next 4 or 5 years, and you have those two main dudes who you signed over the summer to help boost your team. So that's hopefully what they'll do. And I am terrified of saying this, but I think one of those guys will be Miles Bridges.
Oh,
but that will be a bridge will cross probably later in another show.
Is he a guy really worthy of a max deal?
Kinda.
Oh, man.
Kinda. He's been playing pretty good, but would I give max money to Miles Bridges, knowing who he is as a person? Probably not. But there were some other notable deals that occurred on the day of the deadline. Probably the most notable one was the Thunder trading for Gordon Hayward. Other than that, there was pretty much nothing else really of note, except maybe Dallas trading for PJ Washington. And they gave up Grant Williams, Seth Curry, and a first-round pick. What is really funny is, I forget who reported this, but Grant Williams signed with the Mavericks this previous offseason. And, you sign with the Mavericks, what shoes do you wear? You wear Luka's. Grant Williams is a former Celtic. What shoes was Grant Williams wearing as of late? He was wearing some Tatums. So, I guess if you get traded or you get signed to the Dallas Mavericks, make sure you wear your Luka's, or you are at risk of being traded to the Hornets.
Yeah, I saw that kind of on a little bit of a tangent here. Seth Curry, who was dealt in that deal to the Hornets, is now going to play where his dad played, Del Curry, which I thought was pretty cool. And maybe wear his number. Did I see that right?
Yeah, he's wearing his dad's number, so we got another Curry in Charlotte, just not Del Curry. Or Steph Curry. So, the worst possible Curry. But, go ahead. Sorry.
I'll go ahead. Moving on here. Let's just move right in. We'll finish out the show here. Buddy Hield's burner account was found, apparently, by a lot of the people on the day of the trade deadline. On January 24th, Buddy Hield tweeted from his burner asking if there were any good burger joints in Philly. And then 2 weeks later, Buddy Hield is traded to the Philadelphia 76ers.
Yeah. Pretty funny. I think his account is 242boss. So if anyone has some free time and wants to have a good laugh, you can go to 242boss on Twitter. It's just Buddy Hield. It's a Buddy Hield fan page run by Buddy Hield. So if that interests you, I guess you can check that out. But another, I guess, funny thing that happened this past week in the NBA, Spencer Dinwiddie, who was traded to the Raptors from the Nets, he got waived. He met with Lakers Vice President and General Manager Rob Pelinka, I think a day after the trade deadline. And Dinwiddie signed with the Lakers just a day later.
Huh.
So, a part of Dinwiddie's contract if the Lakers win a championship, he'll be awarded a single $1.
What?
Yeah.
$1 if the Lakers win the
He will get
championship.
$1 if the Lakers win a championship.
Wow.
So
That's
don't-
wild.
I don't even know what you can buy with $1 in this stage of our economy, but I don't know. Spencer Dinwiddie, I guess you can go to 7-Eleven and get a little snack for winning the championship if they do. So
Which they won't.
they won't for sure. But yeah, crazy week of NBA news, especially for the Pistons.
Yeah.
And
One thing I will say, going back to the Lakers, correct me if I'm wrong, I think this is the last year that LeBron has on his contract.
it is.
You know, he said publicly he wants to play with Bronny James, his son, in the NBA at some point. That'd be like the coolest moment ever, or whatever he described it as. I don't know the exact quote. Bronny James right now is at USC. He's a freshman. Not talented enough right now to go to the league, in my opinion. Like, probably wouldn't get drafted.
No.
If he wasn't LeBron's son. I almost wonder if LeBron talks him into going, and then LeBron signs with whatever team drafts him. That'd be pretty wild.
Yeah.
I think you'd see Bronny James go a lot higher than he should, just because it's a package deal, right? You get one of the best players in the NBA along with him.
It is. And going back to Bronny James, I don't know if this graphic was real, but I saw a graphic on Twitter of, like, you know, the top USC players. So you have like Isaiah Collier, this other guy, I forget. And it has like their stats. And for Bronny James, it didn't have stats. It said team player and winner. So, Bronny James probably, yeah, you're right. Bronny James probably won't be drafted this year. But you also have to wonder, will a team just sign him for like the minimum contract if LeBron is on their team? Because after this year, he will be eligible to play in the NBA. So, is he an NBA talent? At this stage, no. I think Bryce James is going to be a pretty good NBA player. That's LeBron's younger son, but you're correct.
Yeah.
Bronny James, not right now. He's going to need some more time at USC.
LeBron doesn't have a whole lot of time left, though.
No, he doesn't.
So, he's obviously in year 21 now, so he's so far beating Father Time, but at some point it's going to catch up, and if Bronny James takes much more time to develop at USC, it may not ever happen, which would be sad. I wonder if he pressures him into going to the draft. We'll see. But up next for the Pistons, they're still on this West Coast road trip, it looks like. They're playing at LA tonight. Tonight.
Tonight.
And then they play in Phoenix against the Suns tomorrow.
Yep. And then we'll have the All-Star break after that. So
that's right.
Those are the only 2 games this week. Do I dare say 1-1 this week? Do I dare?
I'll say it.
I'll go 1-1.
All right.
We are going to beat the Lakers tonight.
Yep.
We're going to crumble to Devin Booker, Flint native, and the Phoenix Suns tomorrow night, and Kevin Durant. So that has been the Blue Ski Mask show this week. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.